comments. The first, Nancy Ortiz. Please step up. And just please be reminded that comments are limited to 3 minutes per person.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for affording me this opportunity to speak. First, I would like to say that there are rumors about hiring a consultant group. Please don't hire another consultant group. We already have two, and we've got $22.1 million worth of reports in the archives. Can we go back to that one and save the money for capital? Just saying. I'd like to speak on RAD. There seems to be a lack of transparency in certain developments where there is no communication, or the communication is kind of vague when it comes to the residents. There needs to be not just transparency and conversations with the resident leadership, it needs to be with the residents as a whole. All residents should be included in these conversations. It's not just a group of 5 or 6 in the room. Wavecrest, I understand Wavecrest is the managing agent for all the RAD developments. I need to understand why Wavecrest has been provided with the monopoly of all the RAD developments, as opposed to putting an RFP out and bringing in more managing agents with more experience as Wavecrest, so that you can create a report card and see which managing agents are actually doing their jobs. DC 37, I've noticed a lot of DC 37 union members have been in many of the room conversations. I'm asking that Wavecrest and DC 37 both consider at least 50% of hires of residents from NYCHA within their portfolio. CBL, annual reviews. The system is not fully operational. It's a mess. What should have taken 10 minutes to create your annual reviews takes between 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and it still has a lot of kinks in it, where a lot of the missing documents, so to speak, is now laid on the residents' responsibility to continuously bring it in. And I don't think that's fair. Right now, I got 18 residents that have received letters to appear in court for failure to produce income when they did. Communication. Inclusion and respect to the resident leadership and the residents by both the upper management, middle management, and management offices. Residents are being treated as if they're being done a favor. No, they require service. If they're coming into an office, it's because they need something. They shouldn't be turned away. The practice of not seeing residents in the afternoon, that needs to end. You have staff there from 8:30 to 4:30. They see residents between those hours. They don't get to pick and choose when they want to see and when they don't want to see. The backdoor quiet decision making without having discussions with the resident leadership and the residents is not an act of good faith. We are trying to move forward in under a new mission, and we want to be able to act in good faith, but we want it in return. More calls from elected officials and more lawsuits will constantly continue to move forward if communication and inclusion is not provided by management and middle management. And lastly, last night at Community Board 3, the Office of the Assembly stated that New York State passed an additional $300 million on their budget for capital for NYCHA. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, are you experiencing any part of the Blitz weekend? With that?
Vladic doesn't fall under the Blitz weekend, unfortunately. But because we don't have a high backlog, what we have a backlog in would be plastering, paint, but not like heavy repairs. Our maintenance, we have a pretty good maintenance team, I have to admit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Laurette Humphrey, please step up.
Good morning. Morning. That's enough. Good morning to the chair, board members, community, and the audience. My name is Loretta Humphrey. I am an FHA resident, meaning I live in a private house managed by the New York City Housing Authority. My family and I have lived in this house for over 30 years. We consider it home. We go to school here, we work here, we play here, we worship here, and our other families live here. I am a member of my community, a civic leader, and founder. I love and am loved by my community. I have been coming to these meetings for the past several, been coming to these meetings, the last several meetings, and I never hear the FHA residents on the agenda. So today I am requesting that the FHA residents be put back on the agenda. Many of these residents, they don't want to rent anymore. They want to become home owners. My particular case is I am in a so-called multi-dwelling. And I say so-called because I have been the sole resident in this house for 30 years, 25 of them without another, and I occupy the entire house. So I am asking, we are asking the residents for transparency also. Budgeting for the FHA houses be applied to the FHA houses. Accountability of the FHA funds for maintenance. We want to ensure that the residents are included in the planning process and made aware of each change. The right to know. Programs developing between FHA residents, HUD, and NYCHA, which regards to the home ownership program that will be inclusive of all the FHA residents. We need to appoint a FHA resident to be on the board to speak, because no one else can speak for the FHA residents better than the FHA resident. And we need to have a seat at the table, and we need to have the ability to become the homeowner. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you. No questions.
Mr. James Myers, step up. Yes.
Good morning. My name is James Myers, and I'm from Patterson Houses. And I would like to inform you, if you don't know, we have a contractor that was doing this for about maybe 2 years now. The door that they have put on in the front, it just slammed back and forth. It's going on. I came here about 2 years ago, and I explained to you the same thing. Nothing has been done to correct this. We spent over $100,000 putting in new locks, all that stuff. That's not working. They did not put it on correct, and things like housing supposed to send someone to check what these contractors are doing. They're messing up. They're spending money that's not being corrected. The situation is deteriorating. That front door in 325 just goes back and forth, slamming. No hinges to stop it from going back and forth. I think someone should come out and check it and correct the contractors that's doing this work. Because housing should have someone to investigate the work that the contractor is doing. But apparently someone needs to investigate the contractor inspectors that's supposed to be inspecting the contractors. Okay, and there's another situation. On the roof, not the roof, on the side of the building, Patterson hasn't been pointed over 45 years. When it rains on the side of the building, the rains come in because all the water seeps through the side of the building. So the building needs to be pointed. Patterson is one of the oldest projects in the Bronx. And it's one of the projects that get very less attention. I look at it as we're the misguided jaw of the housing administration because they're not tenants. Just recently, they just took down the donkey baller for, I say, 40 some odd years, we had the same old boilers. Under a housing contract, I think you only, every 15 years, they're supposed to correct it. Patterson, for 40 some odd years, they patched the old one. Now they're recently going to give us, they claim that they're going to give us the new boilers. That's what they say every year, that we're going to get one. I've been coming here, oh, we're going to give it to you next year. Next year come, we don't get it. We get a new donkey boiler, but we never get, right. So this year they put a new one on the side. Okay, also, the tenant parking lot, which is in Mudhaven, they call and say that they're going to give that to the employees. How could you give the tenant parking lot to the employees? They said that NYCHA call say that the employee need a parking lot, which the employee has a parking lot, but yet still they're going to take that one that you have been parking in for years and give it to the employees. How could you do that? You know, the tenants should have some kind of right, but apparently the parking administration, which we're losing money because I think housing should have their own people administrating that parking lot instead of an outside company. Did you take the money that you spend for this outside company? We're wasting it. They come to that parking lot maybe once or twice out of a month. So look at the money that you're spending to correct the mistake that housing is doing. Okay, and that's all I have to say. But we definitely need some kind of help on that bill that's on 325. It just keep going back and forth. I think they should either talk to the construction contractor and see what they can do, because it's a shame you spend all that money and nothing is being done. The locks that they put on, it's not correct. None of that stuff. So it's joke. Someone should come and investigate it. And that's the first building should be in 325. It should. And also my colleague that normally come down here, Ms. McKay, she's sick. She had an operation, so she couldn't come today. But please check on 325 and all the other building that's in Patterson. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks again.
Chair, that concludes our public comments portion, and we'll proceed with the regular calendar. The first order of business is to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on Wednesday, February 27, 2019. So I have a motion.
Move.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We may now proceed with the chair's remarks.
Certainly, thank you so much, and thank you to the public who've come to speak today and participate in these important meetings. So we continue to move forward at the authority with implementing the agreement that was signed on January 31st and developing a collaborative relationship with the monitor to make sure that we are bringing improved services to the residents, particularly in the areas of presumed lead paint, mold, pests, boilers, and elevators. And so we are implementing new and improved ways of going forward. This obviously will take time, but we are making progress as we move forward into this new era. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now proceed to the general manager's report. Ms. Koch.
Good morning, everybody. I am Joey Koch, Senior Vice President for Operations Support Services. Thank you. Thank you for letting me provide another update on our heating response. I'm here today with Heating Director Javier Moldovar. As we've been doing since last fall, we will continue to provide updates on a monthly basis until the end of heating season. Our ongoing proactive efforts continue to demonstrate an improvement in heating services compared to last year. We will remain committed to reviewing all of our current practices and finding more ways to improve and better serve our residents. During the 2017-2018 heating season, October 1st, 2017 through March 25th, 2018, there were 3,349 unplanned outages throughout NYCHA, lasting 29 hours on average. This season, we have had 2,363 outages lasting on average 9 hours for the same corresponding period of October 1st through March 25th. That's a decrease in 69% of our response time. Taking a closer look at these restoration times during the current heating season, 81% of our outages were restored within 12 hours, while 6 of them lasted over 24. That's a dramatic improvement compared to last year's heating season, during which 43% of our outages were restored within 12 hours and 39% lasted over 24 hours. As you can see on the screen, and I apologize, it's a little small to see, the average time that our heating plants were down per day, that's what the indicators are on the chart. During the December 27 winter storms, we saw an average of 2 hours, 60.69 hours of downtime per day, meaning that residents throughout NYCHA on average 2 hours a day, they did not have heat. Whereas this year in December, it was 0.24 or 14.4 minutes. For the entirety of the 2017-2018 heating season, heating plants were down an average of a little bit over 1 hour. Whereas this year, the average for the heating season was 0.24 hours or 14.4 minutes. In early March, we again activated our situation room ahead of an expected cold snap with 3 days of extreme low temperatures. In anticipation, we pre-positioned our emergency mobile boilers to be accessible during citywide for any outage needs that may come, and thankfully we did not need to install them. Just a reminder of some of the undertakings we have done to achieve our results. As of December 9th, 2018, we have changed the staffing model throughout the heating department. Staff are now on site at their assigned clusters throughout the 5 boroughs from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week, including holidays. Previously, our staff would be on site only from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. We have added roving teams every night from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. We have a heat desk that is dedicated to monitoring work orders and our central heating alarm system to dispatch staff 24 hours a day as needed. And as mentioned, we have activated a situation room when needed that allows NYCHA personnel to gather information and coordinate responses and resources. Some of the departments included are emergency management, heating, elevators, information technology, maintenance, repair, and skilled trades. While heating season doesn't end until May 31st, the warmer temperatures that come with spring have allowed us to begin summer overhauls of our heating systems. As you may know, NYCHA staff conducts this preventative maintenance of all heating plants throughout NYCHA during the warmer months so that plants operate more efficiently in the winter. Last year, we kicked off summer overhauls in April, but this year we began the process in March. And as a result, there are more planned outages that are needed in order for us to get into the boiler rooms and the heating systems. Again, we have not been perfect, and problems have been persistent at Sotomayor in the Bronx. This month alone, they experienced an outage lasting 18.5 hours due to a coil leak with a hot water generator, and this coil is from the original building that was built in 1955. This heating season, Sotomayor alone has experienced 91 hot water outages, 34 of which were unplanned, and 44 heat outages, 20 of which were unplanned. We are working with our partners in Capital Projects Department to make extensive improvements to the heating systems at Sotomayor, including replacement of hot water tanks, upgrading the distribution system, and the decoupling of the heat and hot water systems. At Sotomayor, one plant handles heat and hot water services for 31 buildings. By decoupling the heat and hot water for this plant, we are decreasing the strain on boilers, reducing the chance that residents will lose both heat and hot water at the same time. It also allows our staff to work on one system without affecting the other. And in fact, Sotomayor is one of 11 developments that NYCHA announced will be receiving 9 new boiler systems and upgrades that will benefit 24,000 residents thanks to a $300 million capital investment from the city and federal capital dollars. We thank the de Blasio administration for its ongoing commitment to ensure residents can expect the heat and hot water service they deserve day to day. And thanks to a $20 million in additional funding from the mayor through community development block grants, we continue to undertake extensive repairs within NYCHA's portfolio. That's not just at Sotomayor, that's throughout NYCHA. We have also been having positive talks with Governor Cuomo's office and our leaders in Albany to ensure that funding appropriated by the state over the last 2 years can be released so we can tackle overdue repairs to heating systems and to elevators. As always, I want to thank our tireless staff that continue to demonstrate their commitment to their work and to our residents, and they have been working tirelessly. I cannot stress that enough. We really do ask a lot of them, and they continue to rise to the occasion. Thank you. And we know our work is not done yet. We are not done learning, and we're not learning how to improve services to our residents, and we will continue to undertake such education. We've learned a lot from this heating season, and hopefully we'll implement those lessons learned to next. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
In your pursuit of taking care of these particular problems, have you considered revamping the sensors that monitor the outside weather with what will make the sensor react and either give heat or lower the heat or process anything else that may be being done?
Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, the first thing that we try to do is we try to identify buildings that have had issues with the sensors, and we perform what's called a calibration of the sensor with the actual control panel. If that doesn't work, then the first thing to immediately do is replace the sensor itself. It's usually the very easiest thing to replace and locate, and that's the way we do it. So to answer your question, yes, we are.
Okay, and how many, or do we know, how many developments actually utilize the sensors, and how many are utilized with electrical heating? I mean, do we have that number?
We don't utilize electric heating. All of our buildings have sensors and work with outdoor sensors.
And they're all water?
Sorry, no, they're not all hydronic.
That's what I'm asking.
So you're asking what type of systems we have? We have 3
Right.
different types of heating systems. In Wise Towers, we have a hydronic system, which is a water system. It's heated water that runs through the pipes that warms up the convectors in the apartments. In small brownstone type buildings, we have what's called a one-pipe steam system. Also works with and I'm sorry, let me just explain each of the systems, and I'll tell you how they work. And the third system we have is a 2-pipe varivac system. It's a 2-pipe steam system. Steam goes up one pipe, returns back down as condensate in the second pipe. Each of the systems all work with outdoor sensors. The outdoor sensors control a heat control valve in the building. That heat control valve opens and closes according to the outside temperature. The colder it is outside, the greater the opening, the hotter the hot water, or the more steam running through the system.
Okay.
So,
What I needed.
when a resident calls in with a heat complaint and your team goes to that tenant apartment to ensure that they have heat, do they also knock on other doors to ensure that other tenants in the building have heat? Because as we know, all tenants may not call and put in a complaint. Some tenants may be using electric heaters to warm their apartments. Do we ensure that all of the residents in the building have heat?
So what we do is the first place we look is the actual heating system to see if it's a building-wide, a stair hall, building, or development-wide problem. And assuming that it is, we will fix that. And then before we will restore an outage, we knock on several apartments to make sure that heat has been restored throughout the building. So it's not just one person. If one person has an isolated situation, then we will go and look at that apartment. But we really do stress that everybody should be calling the CCC or using the My NYCHA app to report heating problems. As I alluded to in the testimony or in the remarks, we have people 24 hours a day who are looking at tickets as they're coming in. And that's how we know when there's a problem. So we dispatch based on the number of tickets that are coming in, amongst other things. But we strongly urge that if someone is having a heat or hot water problem, to please call the CCC, use the My NYCHA app, because that is how we are best able to troubleshoot a problem that someone may have.
That statement brings up another concern. So how do we define an outage? Is it a particular group of apartments? Is it the entire development? I mean, where is it that we define what an outage is?
So I will give you the overall definition, and then Javier can explain the specifics that go into it. So an outage is defined as no heat for a stair hall. So let's say all of the A line, for instance, or a building or a development. And certain developments, though there may be one apartment, let's say, that is having a radiator problem. I'm going to make this up. I'm using an example. In order to fix the radiator, we may actually have to shut down heat for the entire apartment or line, or maybe in some instances, a development, because the systems may be interconnected. So Javier can explain in better than I can, but that's the gist of it. So it's a stairwell, building, or development.
So, as Joey said, it's either the development, the building, stairwell, or apartment line. When it's an apartment line, then we're dealing with all the residents on that line. But the first thing we do is we check the equipment. So we start in the boiler room, and if we find something wrong in the boiler room affecting pressure, then it's going to affect the entire development. And then we create an outage for that. So if everything is okay in the boiler room, then we'll make our way into the building. We'll check the equipment in the basement. If the equipment in the basement is the issue, then naturally the entire building is going to be the problem. So now, if all of that checks out and we still have a problem in the apartment line, then we check the equipment that would pick up that apartment line. And we deal with that equipment, and we'll create the outage for the apartment line.
But do you go to the units in the line?
Yes, we do. We always start with the units that created the work order. And uptake in tickets usually is, in our world, a potential outage. So if the uptake is in a single building, then the outage potentially can be in that single building. If the outage is in a single apartment line, then, if the uptake in tickets is in a single apartment line, then the outage can potentially be in just that single apartment line. And the same thing with a development. If the uptake is throughout the entire development, then potentially the outage is in the line at the source.
So it's a diagnostic tool as well.
Yes.
So if it's everyone in the H line has experienced problems, oh, okay, that could be the zone valve that's going to the H line. So we know when we get to the boiler room, okay, let's make sure the zone valve that feeds the H line is working. And so it helps with diagnosis as well.
I just have are you finished, Victor? You have nothing?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to make sure I understand this chart. So if you look at, say, January, does this mean, say, January of 2018, does this mean that the average hours per day of all outages was 0.20 hours?
Yeah, I'm just pulling out my chart. So no.
What is, yeah, because I couldn't, okay, tell me what it means then.
So that's 0.20 of an hour.
Right.
So it's less than an hour.
So the average outage.
No, this is throughout NYCHA. This is the amount of time. If you add all
Everything
the
that's
outages, all the hours of the outage,
Right.
and you divide it essentially by the number of buildings that had outages.
Okay.
This is what you would get.
Okay. What would the number be if you just took all the outages
Well,
then looked at the average time of the outages, how long they occur?
Well, I can actually tell you for February.
Yeah.
For February, there were a total, in 2018, there was a total of 322 outages that lasted about, on average, 10 hours. This year in February, there were 370 outages, so there was an increase in outages, but the average time of restoration was 8.7 hours. And the reason why we had more outages is there were planned outages that were scheduled. So that affects it. So some of these are planned and unplanned. So February is an example of more outages, but our response time was better. Whereas last year there were less outages, but our response time was not nearly as good.
Okay, so that's helpful. So if you look at the difference between 17 and 18, 18 was quite a bit of an improvement, looks like, from this chart. Okay, from this chart.
Yeah.
From
Would you,
all charts.
From all charts.
okay,
From all
if you did the second chart where you just looked at the outages themselves and the amount of time, would you still see the same type of
Absolutely.
improvement?
Those are the numbers that I made reference to in my talking points, and I can just repeat them again so that, and this is for the entire year. It's not just for not for 1 month, but for the entire year. Last year, from this point in time for the entire season, we had, I'm sorry, I'm just looking for, I'm on the wrong page, that could explain it. We had 3,349 unplanned outages throughout NYCHA lasting 29 hours. This year, we had 2,363 lasting on average 9 hours. And then to further
That's an improvement?
That's a big improvement.
that's a big improvement. And to just further illustrate the point, looking at restoration time, that's under 12 hours. Last year, 43% of outages were restored within 12 hours. This year, it's 81%. And then if you look at outages, that lasted over 24 hours. Last year, 39% of those outages lasted for over 24 hours. This year, it was only 6.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay. We'll now proceed with the 19 calendar items, items 1 through 8.
Good morning. Deborah Goddard to present the capital votes, starting with items number 1 through 4. Each of them is the ratification of a change order for professional services agreements. For professional services, AE firms, for instance, the rule is to come to you for all change orders. For our construction work, we don't have to come to you unless it increases the contract by 10%, and that there was some confusion in CPD around that rule. So the first one is ratifying a change order to the contract at Kahn, Peterson, F. and Fox Associates for the amount of $550,000. This is in connection with the Red Hook East and West Sandy recovery work. We had asked them, we did a lot of extra work on design once the prior administration allowed FEMA to take into consideration sea level rise as well as simply the flood area. And we asked them to do additional work for us. Item number 2 is to ratify a change order in the amount of $616,000 to the firm of Curtis Ginberg's Architects. This relates to the Sandy work at Coney Island, Site 8, O'Dwyer Gardens, and Surfside Gardens. The change order there, again, was to do additional feasibility and conceptual design reports related to resiliency. Items 3 and 4 each relate to a contract now held by Attain Engineers, formerly Hacks, an existing contract for which they're doing the work at Sotomayor. Sotomayor is a fairly comprehensive work, multi-phase. The change orders for item 3, it's in the amount of slightly over $434,000. For item 4, it's slightly over $365,000. I've been with you here a number of times about Sotomayor. We had gotten some tough bids. We repackaged the work. We split it into more phases. And in doing that, we required more work from our construction management firm. Those are items 1 through 4. Are there questions? So item 5 is a change order to 10 AE service contracts with respect to local law 11 inspections. This is the first increase to the contract in the amount of $10 million. We have encountered more work under our current cycle 8 inspection cycle than cycle 7. We are also using our architects and engineers steadily through the process to hold them more accountable for their designs and initial feasibility studies. And we will be back soon with new contracts, but this will tide us over for what we need to get through the current cycle 8 until we have new contracts in place. If there are no questions, item number 6 is the recommendation to award a contract for roofing and railing replacement at Morris 2 Houses. This is to S&N Builders, the low bidder, a contract of over $8.9 million. S&N is a minority-owned business. They've done work with us in the past satisfactorily. The VNC is pending, and therefore the award is not final until we get a clear VNC. Their bid variance was 16.55% higher than our estimate, a little bit above our tolerance, but they pointed to heavier numbers in the asbestos abatement work, and all of the bids had the same increase in that work item, and so we decided that this bid was legitimate and the variance was reasonable. We recommend going forward.
Just for me to understand.
Sure.
When you have the within the local law 11, you have all these different cycles.
Yes.
Each cycle is numbered, and the definition of these cycles has to do with the type of work that has to be done, or is it a law that
It's a calendar, so it's every 5 years. So we are now in cycle, don't ask me which year cycle 8 started. I think it was 18, but we're in cycle 8 now.
Okay.
It's every 5 years. Item number 7 is the award for IDITQ contracts for local law 11 for exterior restoration and emergency sidewalk sheds. So this is a 2-part contract being awarded to Roma Scaffolding, the 3rd lowest bidder, and contracting the value of almost $59 million. So the first part of the work is exterior restoration, local law 11 work. The second part is installation of sidewalk sheds and emergencies, not connected necessarily with a specific local law 11 project. But over the course of a year, you could have a sudden notice of a building dropping bricks, which we have, or a bulge, and we need to get sheds out there right away. So this will handle this. The lowest bidder, I have to note, failed to submit the sealed list of subcontractors, which is a legal requirement, and as well as they did not satisfy the requisite work experience. The second low bidder also failed to satisfy the requisite prior work experience. So we are into our 3rd low bidder. The BNC is pending, and then again, so this award is not final until we have a clear BNC. This bid was almost 17% higher than our estimate, again, slightly over our normal tolerance, but they did acknowledge, and it made sense to us, that since this is a citywide contract, they need more supervisory staff to cover the breadth of their contract and multiple sites being engaged at the same time. We thought it was reasonable, and we recommend award. Item number 8 is an increase change order to the requirement contract for asbestos and lead abatement project monitoring and management for various developments citywide. The contractor is Genesis Environmental. The increase is about $3.5 million to bring their total value of the contract to almost $9.5 million. We've had this, they monitor the work related to our roofing projects, in-unit air monitoring control. We are going to be soliciting a new contract. This will tide us over. We also have had a lot of extra work. We used to work in conjunction with operations. They have so much work right now that we need to take more of it on ourselves, and that was not contemplated at the start of this contract, but it entirely makes sense. So we are requesting this increase to tide us over to a new contract. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Items 9 through 15. Items 9 through 15.
Good morning, Kathy Pennington, Executive Vice President for Operations, presenting resolutions 9 through 15. The first resolution is requesting authorization to award a requirement contract for installation of elevator door lock monitoring and brake monitoring systems on motion control engineering controllers. This contract will be between the authority and Big Apple Elevator Service and Consulting LLC. This is a 2-year requirement contract with a 1-year renewal option to be exercised at the authority's sole discretion. The requirement contract provides for the installation of a door lock monitoring and brake monitoring systems for 133 elevators at approximately 20 developments citywide. The scope of the work includes, but is not limited to, furnishing all labor, materials, filings, permits, testing, engineering services, and other items required for the installation of these systems. The amount is $2,061,498. Resolution 10 is requesting authorization to award a requirement contract for the replacement of a boiler plant system. The contract would be between the authority and North Star Mechanical Corp. This is a 2-month requirement contract with no renewal. This contract provides for the replacement of a boiler plant system. The scope of work includes, but is not limited to, furnishing all labor, supervision, materials, and equipment for the removal and replacement of a boiler plant system. This is for a smaller development, which is a one building, a single building on College Avenue at East 165th Street, and the cost is $1,879,586. Resolution 11 is authorization being requested for the award of a contract for the purchase and delivery of 5 mobile boilers. The contract would be awarded to, or authorized to be awarded to, North Star Mechanical Corp. to provide 5 mobile boilers to various developments citywide. The amount is $1,807,680. This would bring our NYCHA mobile boilers to approximately 12 that we use as contingencies during the heat season, in addition to mobiles that we lease. So this, again, will increase our capacity to troubleshoot any heating issues that arise that require a mobile boiler.
I have a question regarding the mobile boilers.
Yes.
Are they used for one season or for more than one season?
They can be used year after year. So the length of time they stay at a particular development depends on the need. Sometimes they are installed long-term, and sometimes they're just temporary until repairs are made. So it depends on the particular circumstance. But we can bring a mobile boiler into a location, maybe have to have it available for a month, and then we can move it back out. So we can use these mobiles to troubleshoot problems wherever we need them.
So when there's an outage where you have to repair the boiler, you bring in the mobile unit, and that would just be for the season. So if it took 2 seasons, 2 winters to repair or to replace the boiler, a mobile unit would be used?
Well, I'm not sure the particular situation you're describing, but if it was a long term, that would typically be a location where there is a plan to replace the boiler. Then there would be a long-term installation of a mobile heating system. But these mobiles we're talking about today are being used for shorter term troubleshooting, where a particular repair would take longer than, a few days. So it's a different use of them. So we do have mobiles that are installed long-term that are under lease with the agency, either through heating operations or through our capital program. And they may need to be there for different reasons. Does that answer?
Yeah.
But these are reusable, and we can use them at all different locations.
So at times, those units that are in place for longer periods of time, would it in some cases, run more than one season, one heating season.
Yes, yes.
Until,
The example that was brought up earlier at Patterson, they've had a mobile boiler for years, pending, the replacement of the boiler system. And they continue to have a mobile boiler there. That one stays there permanently until the new plant is constructed.
And that would be just a number of years, 2-3 years?
It depends on the particular location, and it depends where in the capital improvement plan the plant is scheduled for replacement. But it typically is over the course of several years. If there's a particular location or development you need information, we'd be glad to get that for you on our schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And Resolution 12 is requesting authorization to approve a change order for a requirement contract for asbestos abatement and replacement of floor tiles in move-out apartments with the New York Environmental Systems, Inc. And this is for asbestos abatement and replacement in our move-out apartments. This requirement contract provides for asbestos abatement and replacement of floor tiles in move-out apartments. The scope of work includes, but is not limited to, removal and legal disposal of existing one or more layers vinyl asbestos floor tiles, and it includes wet scraping, etc., of any existing tiles. The amount of this contract is for $3,473,275.
Question.
Yes.
New York Environmental Systems. So are they responsible for floor tiles in units as well as in common areas, removal of the tiles?
This particular contract is being used for in units.
In units only?
Yes.
And when they remove the tiles, are they removing the entire floor tiles, or are they just removing in some areas and then replacing tile over tile?
So it depends how many layers there are. So when we exceed, I think it's 3 layers, is when we do the tear out and remove all the tiles. And that's when this requires the additional process for asbestos removal. So each unit, it would be independently assessed, because another move out, there may not have been a long-term tenant there, and maybe we replaced the flooring in the past year or two and wouldn't need to do this work. So it depends on the particular unit.
Who monitors the contractors when they go into the units to remove the tiles?
Our staff supervise the contractors, and we do an initial investigation before we award the work. So our staff would be supervising the work that they're completing.
And they are held accountable at the end of the job to make sure that the work has been completed in satisfactory manner?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I just would stress the work in the tile replacement work in a unit that's occupied could be slightly different and done by in-house staff. Depends on the amount of work that needs to be done. But this work is done by contractors. Okay, Resolution 13 is requesting authorization to approve a change order for maintenance painting of apartments. This is a change order on a requirement contract awarded to Beazla Painting for maintenance painting of apartments, which did not require initial board approval for an initial 2-year term with 1-year renewal option to increase the not to exceed amount in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remaining 2-year term of the 1-year renewal option. This is for Monroe houses. The amount is $1,191,506. And Resolution 14 is requesting authorization of a change order to a requirement contract for general carpentry work with Mount Olympus Restoration, Inc. for general carpentry work. This did not require initial board approval for an initial 2-year term with a 1-year renewal option to increase the not to exceed amount in order to fund continue provision of services during the remainder of the one-year renewal option. The work being conducted under this contract includes installation of cabinetry, various doors, including interior, apartment entrance, lobby entrance, roof, and exit doors located throughout the developments. And this is for various developments in Brooklyn, and the amount is $500,000. Resolution number 15 is requesting approval for the award of a requirement contract for the purchase and delivery of door interviewers and replacement parts. This is requesting approval to award a contract to the sole responsive and responsible bidder, Progressive Hardware Company Incorporated. I know you're probably curious what a door interviewer is, and it actually is a peephole. I don't know where that name. It would be fun to learn the history of a door interviewer. But this is for various developments citywide, and the amount is $227,747. Thank you.
Good morning, Paulina Bakhtiar for Real Estate, presenting item 16, which is a request for authorization to amend Board Resolution 18-228-38. The original board resolution authorized NYCHA to submit multiple applications to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development pursuant to Section 18 for approval to enter into long-term ground leases at 7 developments across the Bronx and Brooklyn, including 2 developments in Bushwick in the Hope Gardens consolidation, specifically Bushwick 2, Groups A and C, and Bushwick 2 CDA. Excuse me, the request today is to update that application to indicate the date, update the reso to indicate the date of receipt of the letter of support from the New York City Deputy Mayor for Housing and Economic Development as May 9th, 2018. Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Bob Morano, NYCHA's Chief Information Officer. This item is requesting authorization to enter into an agreement with SHI International Corp. For Interlock Mobile Informer. NYCHA uses Mobile Informer as our mobile software for Maximo. It is our mobile solution for all skilled trades workers and maintenance workers. It allows workers to remotely be assigned work, to close work orders, as well as perform inspections and preventative maintenance. This item will procure an additional 1,000 licenses, as well as pay for ongoing maintenance for 4,000 existing licenses for the next 5 years. The additional licenses are needed to roll out a mobile inventory handheld system that will be used at our storerooms, at management offices, as well as to give mobile access to additional users associated with inspections, QA, and compliance. Questions? Thank you.
Questions? Thank you.
Hi, I'm PV Anantram, CFO for NYCHA, and here to present Resolution 18, asking for authorization to approve the investment transactions for the quarter ending December 31 of last year. So last year we closed with about $1.2 billion in our portfolio, an investment portfolio. The returns were about 2% approximately, which is about $5.7 million for the quarter. The earnings for the full year was about 1.8%, around $21 million. Any questions? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tyson Jeffers, Acting Internal Audit Director. Resolution 19 is seeking approval to authorize NYCHA to issue the 2019 NYCHA Internal Audit Plan. The Department of Internal Audit and Assessment conducts audits and independent assessments of the efficiency and effectiveness of the authority's operations, the adequacy of internal controls, the accuracy of financial data, and compliance with applicable laws, regulations, and procedures. These work objectives are accomplished by conducting operational, financial, compliance, and information technology audits selected as a result of a formal risk assessment process. These audits are conducted in accordance with generally accepted government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller of the United States of America, international standards for the professional practice of internal auditing promulgated by the Institute of Internal Auditors, and including other auditing standards set forth by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the internal controls frameworks known as the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadway Commission and Control Objectives for Information and Related Technologies. During January and February 2019, the authority's Department of Internal Audit and Assessment performed an enterprise risk assessment process to identify the potential adverse events that may have an impact on the authority's ability to achieve its strategic and financial goals. This engagement led to assisting executive management in understanding the key business risks presently impacting the organization, as well as defining management's oversight and accountability of the risk portfolio and ensuring controls and mitigating risk as intended. The feedback from the exercise led to developing the 2019 NYCHA Internal Audit Plan, which will review critical systems and management controls, as well as perform more effective and efficient audits and assessments to provide executive management with recommendations that improve key internal controls of the authority and add value to the authority's business operations. On March 21, 2019, the Acting Director of Internal Audit and Assessment presented the draft of the 2019 Internal Audit Plan to the authority's Audit Committee, including an analysis for 2017 to 2019 and explanations for the enterprise-wide risk assessment conducted, the authority's risk culture and appetite, as well as the internal audit planning process. Based on the presentation, the authority's Audit Committee recommended board approval for the issuance of the 2019 NYCHA Internal Audit Plan in compliance with the Audit Committee Charter adopted pursuant to Board Resolution 03-6/18-18 with subsequent amendments, of which the most recent is by Board Resolution 13-9/25-6. Any questions?
I do, on this point, rather on this resolution, speaking for the audit committee, we were supportive of passing this resolution and adopting the audit plan. We do note that the audit plan is still under some review by the audit committee, so we may have further comments on it later in the year.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, 19 items were presented for board approval. May I have a motion to approve the 19 items?
Move.
Second. Second. All opposed? All in favor? None opposed. Thank you. Being that all matters before the board today have been addressed, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Move.
Second. Second. All in favor? None opposed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.